Hello there, and welcome back to the sleepy ocean. Tonight, we are going to drift into the clearest, warmest waters of the equatorial belt to explore the most complex and vibrant ecosystems on our planet, coral reefs. To truly understand a reef, you must first shrink your perspective down to the microscopic level, abandoning the human scale to meet the architect of these underwater cities, the coral polyp. Imagine a creature that looks like a tiny, translucent flower, no bigger than a grain of rice or the head of a pin. This is the polyp, a simple animal related to jellyfish and anemones. It consists of a soft, cylindrical body, topped with a ring of stinging tentacles surrounding a central mouth. During the day, these polyps are often retracted, hiding inside their limestone cups for protection, turning the reef into a landscape of hard, lifeless rock. But at night, under the cover of darkness, millions of these tiny flowers bloom. They extend their tentacles into the current, grasping for microscopic plankton. The polyp is a master builder, a tiny mason that pulls calcium and carbonate ions from the seawater and secretes a hard, white skeleton of calcium carbonate, or aragonite, beneath its soft body. This secretion is slow, an agonizingly patient process that adds only millimeters of stone per year. Yet, over millions of years, the collective labor of trillions of these tiny animals has built structures visible from space, turning the invisible minerals of the ocean into the massive ramparts of the Great Barrier Reef, a testament to the power of small, persistent actions accumulated over deep time. The secret to the coral's success, and the reason reefs act as solar-powered engines in the nutrient-poor tropical seas, lies within the tissue of the polyp itself, a microscopic, golden-brown algae known as zooxanthellae. This relationship is one of the most elegant symbioses in nature. The coral provides the algae with a safe home protected by stinging cells and supplies the raw materials for photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and nitrogenous waste. In return, the algae act as tiny internal farms. They use the intense tropical sunlight to produce oxygen and glucose, feeding the coral from the inside out. Up to 90% of the energy a coral needs to build its massive skeleton comes from these microscopic guests. This partnership essentially turns the animal into a plant-animal hybrid, a creature that hunts at night and photosynthesizes during the day. It is this solar dependency that restricts coral reefs to the shallow, clear waters where light can penetrate. The colors of the reef, the browns, greens, and yellows, are largely the colors of the algae shining through the transparent tissue of the host. Without these tiny partners, the coral would starve and turn stark white, a phenomenon known as bleaching, revealing the fragile dependence of the entire ecosystem on a single cellular handshake. The geological lifespan of a coral reef operates on a timescale that makes human history look like a fleeting moment. A single massive coral colony, like a brain coral or a porite's head, can be hundreds or even thousands of years old. These massive domes are not rocks, they are living libraries. As the coral grows, it deposits skeleton in annual bands, similar to tree rings. By drilling a core sample from an ancient coral, scientists can read the climate history of the ocean. The density of the bands reveals the water temperature. The chemical composition reveals the salinity and rainfall, and trace metals can show volcanic eruptions or industrial pollution from centuries ago. A large coral head sitting in the silence of the Pacific is a climate archive, recording the El Niño events of the Middle Ages and the typhoons of the Renaissance in its limestone bones. To swim past such a creature is to swim past a living witness to the history of the atmosphere, a silent observer that has been building its own monument since before the pyramids were raised. The classification of coral reefs into three primary types, fringing reefs, barrier reefs, and atolls, was first famously theorized by Charles Darwin during his voyage on the HMS Beagle. While sailing across the Pacific, Darwin realized that these forms were not distinct entities, but stages in a geological life cycle governed by the subsidence of volcanic islands. A fringing reef grows directly from the shore of a new volcanic island. As the heavy volcano slowly sinks into the ocean floor over millions of years, the coral grows upward to stay in the light, creating a lagoon between the reef and the sinking land. This is a barrier reef. Finally, when the volcano disappears completely beneath the waves, only the ring of coral remains, encircling a central lagoon, an atoll. This theory, known as the subsidence theory, transformed the way we see the ocean floor. Every atoll is a tombstone for a vanished island, a circle of living rock that marks the spot where a mountain once stood, maintained by the relentless upward growth of the coral against the inevitable pull of gravity. The Great Barrier Reef, off the coast of Australia, is the largest living structure on Earth, a sprawling biological entity that stretches for over 1,400 miles. It is not a single reef, but a mosaic of nearly 3,000 individual reefs and 900 islands. To grasp its scale, imagine a chain of fortifications running from Vancouver to the Mexican border. This massive structure alters the oceanography of the entire region. It acts as a breakwater, absorbing the energy of the Pacific swells and creating a calm, protected lagoon along the continental shelf. The sheer volume of limestone produced by the reef is staggering. It is a geological feature built entirely by biology. From the air, it looks like a turquoise smear of watercolor paint. From space, it is a distinct white line against the blue marble. It is the only living thing visible from the moon, a collective organism, so vast that it has become a geographical feature, influencing the tides, the currents, and the weather patterns of the southern hemisphere. The reproductive phenomenon, known as mass spawning, is one of the most spectacular synchronized events in the natural world. A blizzard of life that occurs usually once a year, a few nights after the full moon in late spring or early summer. Triggered by a precise combination of lunar cycles, water temperature, and day length, millions of coral colonies across the entire reef release their gametes simultaneously. This coordination is crucial because corals are immobile. They cannot move to find a mate. By releasing their eggs and sperm into the water column at the exact same moment, they maximize the chances of fertilization. The water becomes thick with pink and orange bundles of eggs, drifting upward like an inverted snowstorm or an underwater galaxy of rising stars. The slick of spawn on the surface can be so massive it is visible from satellites and can be smelled for miles. A sweet, fishy, pungent aroma of raw life. For a few hours, the ocean is a soup of genetic possibility, a chaotic mixer where the next generation of the reef is forged in the open water before settling back down to the hard substrate to begin the slow work of building. The acoustic landscape of a healthy coral reef is not the silent world often portrayed in films, but a cacophony of biological noise that rivals a rainforest at dawn. If you listen with a hydrophone, the reef crackles and pops like bacon frying in a pan. This background static is created by millions of snapping shrimp, tiny crustaceans that possess a specialized claw capable of snapping shut with such velocity that it creates a cavitation bubble. The collapse of this bubble generates a shockwave and a sound reaching 218 decibels, louder than a gunshot. Overlaid on this crackling static are the grunts, clicks, and hoots of fish. Damselfish chirp to defend their gardens. Clownfish, pop their jaws to signal dominance, and parrotfish crunch audibly as they scrape algae from the rock. This wall of sound serves as a beacon. Larval fish and corals drifting in the open ocean use the noise of the reef to navigate home, swimming toward the sound of the party to find a safe place to settle. A silent reef is a dead reef. A healthy reef is a riot of noise, broadcasting its vitality into the blue void. The relationship between the coral and the parrotfish is a critical cycle of erosion and sand production that shapes the very islands of the tropics. Parrotfish are colorful, heavy-bodied grazers equipped with a beak formed from fused teeth. They bite directly into the coral rock to scrape off the algae growing on the surface. In the process, they ingest significant amounts of limestone skeleton. This rock is ground into a fine powder in their pharyngeal mill, a set of crushing throat jaws, and then excreted as pristine, white sand. A single large parrotfish can produce up to its 900 pounds of sand per year. The idyllic white beaches of the Maldives, Hawaii, and the Caribbean are largely composed of parrotfish poop. When you lie on a tropical beach, you are resting on the recycled architecture of the reef, processed through the gut of a fish. This biological erosion is essential for the ecosystem, preventing the reef from becoming choked with algae and creating the soft substrate needed for seagrass beds and burrowing animals. The chemical warfare occurring on a coral reef is a silent, invisible battle for space that is as fierce as any physical combat. In the crowded real estate of the reef, corals, sponges, and soft corals compete for every square inch of hard rock. To secure their borders, many species release potent toxins and chemical inhibitors into the water. Soft corals produce terpenes that stunt the growth of their hard coral neighbors. Hard corals extend long, specialized sweeper tentacles, loaded with stinging nematocysts, to burn and digest any encroaching colonies. Some sponges secrete acids that bore into the coral skeleton, undermining their rivals. This chemical soup makes the water around a reef a complex matrix of invisible territories. It also makes the reef a treasure trove for pharmacology. Many of the most promising new drugs for cancer, pain, and inflammation are derived from the defensive chemicals of reef organisms. Compounds evolved over millions of years to kill or repel competitors in the slow-motion war for the seabed. The twilight zone, or mesophotic coral ecosystems, lie deep below the recreational diving limits, between 100 and 500 feet, where the light is dim and blue. For a long time, scientists thought reefs ended where the scuba divers stopped. We now know that vast, thriving coral reefs exist in this twilight realm. The corals here have adapted to the low light by growing in flat, plate-like shapes to maximize their surface area, acting like solar panels to catch every stray photon. They are often darker in color or fluorescent, using specialized proteins to shift the wavelength of the available blue light into a form their algae can use. These deep reefs may serve as lifeboats for the shallower reefs, protected from the warming surface waters and the battering of storms. They are the hidden basements of the coral city, unexplored reservoirs of biodiversity that connect the sunlit shallows to the dark abyss. The phenomenon of biofluorescence on the reef transforms the underwater world into a neon dreamscape that is largely invisible to the human eye without special equipment. Many corals, anemones, and fish contain fluorescent proteins that absorb high-energy blue light and re-emit it as lower-energy green, orange, or red light. To a human diver under normal sunlight, a coral might look brown, but under a UV light or a blue filter, it glows with an electric, alien intensity. This fluorescence acts as a sunscreen for the coral, dissipating harmful excess solar radiation, or as a way to enhance photosynthesis in deep water. For fish, it is a secret channel of communication. Many reef fish have yellow filters in their eyes that allow them to see these fluorescent patterns clearly against the blue background, enabling them to spot members of their own species or potential mates in a way that predators cannot. It is a hidden layer of visual information, a secret code written in light that paints the reef in colors we are only just beginning to see. The symbiotic relationship between the clownfish and the sea anemone is one of the most recognizable partnerships on the reef, a delicate negotiation of immunity and protection. The anemone is a deadly predator for most fish, its tentacles armed with microscopic harpoons that deliver a paralyzing neurotoxin. The clownfish, however, is immune. This immunity is not innate, it is acquired. When a young clownfish settles into an anemone, it performs a cautious dance, gently touching the tentacles with its fins and belly. Over a period of hours or days, the fish develops a specialized mucus coating that mimics the chemical signature of the anemone itself. The anemone does not fire its stingers because it thinks the fish is part of its own body. In exchange for this protection, the clownfish defends the anemone from butterfly fish that eat tentacles, cleans away parasites, and its waste provides nitrogen fertilizer for the anemone's symbiotic algae. They are roommates who have learned to tolerate each other's deadly nature, finding safety in the heart of a stinging trap. The structural complexity of the reef, known as rugosity, is the key metric that determines the biodiversity of the ecosystem. A healthy reef is not a flat pavement. It is a chaotic, three-dimensional labyrinth of overhangs, caves, crevices, and branches. This architecture provides niches for thousands of different species. Tiny gobies live in the branches of acropora coral. Moray eels hide in the deep fissures. Soldierfish hover under the ledges. The more complex the structure, the more life it can support. When a reef dies and the coral skeletons collapse into rubble, this rugosity is lost. The city is flattened. The fish have nowhere to hide, and the biodiversity crashes. The physical shape of the coral is the housing infrastructure for the entire community, a complex geometry of limestone that turns a flat seafloor into a multi-story metropolis. The role of the shark on the coral reef is that of a manager, regulating the health of the ecosystem from the top down. Reef sharks, like the grey reef, blacktip, and whitetip, are the apex predators. They do not just eat fish randomly, they target the weak, the sick, and the slow. This culling strengthens the prey populations. More importantly, the presence of sharks creates a landscape of fear. Their patrolling presence forces intermediate predators, like groupers and snappers, to hide, preventing them from overeating the herbivores like parrotfish. If the sharks are removed, the intermediate predators explode in number, wiping out the herbivores. Without herbivores, the algae grows unchecked and smothers the coral. The shark is the guardian of the balance, its silhouette casting a shadow that keeps the food web in check and ensures the coral remains the dominant force on the bottom. The incredible clarity of the water around a coral reef is not a sign of abundance, but of emptiness. It is a biological desert. Tropical waters are typically nutrient poor, lacking the nitrogen and phosphorus that drive plankton blooms in colder oceans. This lack of plankton is what makes the water so blue and clear. The coral reef is an oasis of productivity in this nutrient desert. It thrives by recycling. Every atom of nitrogen and phosphorus is tightly conserved and cycled between the coral, the algae, the fish, and the bacteria. Sponges play a crucial role in this sponge loop, absorbing dissolved organic carbon released by the corals and converting it into cellular matter that is then eaten by bottom dwellers. The reef is a closed-loop system, a hyper-efficient engine that retains every scrap of energy in a place where resources are scarce, creating a riot of life in a sea of emptiness. The mimicry of the reef is a high-stakes game of deception where survival depends on looking like something else. The stonefish, the most venomous fish in the world, looks exactly like a mesmerizingly ugly, algae-covered rock. It sits, motionless, allowing algae and hydroids to grow on its skin, waiting for a fish to swim within range of its lightning-fast gulp. Conversely, the harmless mimic octopus can shapeshift to resemble a poisonous lionfish, a sea snake, or a sole, depending on the threat. Nudibranches, colorful sea slugs, advertise their toxicity with brilliant neon patterns, while flatworms evolve to look exactly like them to gain the same protection. The visual language of the reef is one of lies and warnings, a masquerade ball where everyone is wearing a costume to either eat or avoid being eaten. The cleaner stations of the reef are the neutral zones of the underwater world, the barbershops and clinics where the rules of predation are temporarily suspended. At these specific coral heads, cleaner wrasses and cleaner shrimp set up shop. Fish plagued by parasites, dead skin, and infection line up for service. They signal their intent by adopting a trance-like posture, opening their mouths and flaring their gills. Large predators, including sharks and mantas, will allow tiny cleaners to swim inside their mouths and through their gills to pick off the pests. The cleaners get a meal and the clients get healthcare. This mutualism is so ingrained that the removal of cleaner fish from a reef leads to a rapid decline in fish health and diversity. It is a social institution, a place of truce where the ancient enemies of the reef meet in peace for the sake of hygiene. The gentle giant of the reef, the manta ray, is a feeder that glides through the channels with the grace of a stealth bomber. With a wingspan of up to 20 feet, the manta uses its cephalic lobes, the horn-like fins on its head, to funnel plankton-rich water into its mouth. Mantas are highly intelligent, possessing the largest brain-to-body ratio of any fish. They are known to recognize individual divers and engage in playful behavior. They visit the reef specifically for cleaning and social interaction. Seeing a manta train, a line of males following a female in a courtship dance, looping and diving over the coral, is one of the most majestic sights in the ocean. They are the soaring eagles of the reef, bridging the gap between the benthic world of the coral and the pelagic world of the open water. The mucus net feeding strategy of the vermitid snails is a sedentary adaptation that turns the reef surface into a sticky trap. These snails are not mobile. Their shells are cemented into the coral rock. To feed, they secrete a long, sticky web of mucus threads that drift in the current like a spider web. Plankton and detritus get stuck in the slime. Periodically, the snail hauls the net back in and eats it, along with the catch. While effective for the snail, these mucus nets are harmful to the corals, smothering the polyps and preventing them from feeding. It is a slow-motion conflict, a sticky web cast over the city by a stationary hunter that has given up movement for a life of reeling in the current. The discovery of the deep-water coral reefs of the North Atlantic, particularly the Lophelia pertusa reefs, challenged the definition of what a reef is. These corals live in the cold, dark waters off Norway, Scotland, and Canada, at depths of thousands of feet. They do not have zooxanthellae, they do not need sunlight. They feed entirely on capturing zooplankton drifting in the deep currents. These reefs grow much slower than tropical corals, but they form massive structures that can be thousands of years old. They host a diversity of deep-sea life comparable to the tropical rainforests. They prove that the reef-building instinct is not dependent on the sun, but on the ability of the polyp to pull stone from the water, creating citadels of calcium in the eternal darkness of the deep ocean. The cyclic plague of the crown-of-thorns starfish is one of the most terrifying natural phenomena on the reef, a slow-motion invasion by a creature that seems designed for destruction. This starfish, Acanthaster plancy, is a massive multi-armed echinoderm covered in venomous, thorn-like spines that can pierce a wetsuit. It does not eat like other animals. It feeds by everting its stomach through its mouth, draping its gastric folds over the living coral polyps like a suffocating blanket. It releases digestive enzymes that liquefy the coral tissue right in its own skeleton, absorbing the nutrient soup and leaving behind a stark, white, dead scar. When the conditions are right, often linked to nutrient runoff from land, the population of these starfish explodes into the millions. They move across the reef in a slow, creeping wave, consuming everything in their path. A single outbreak can strip a healthy reef of 90% of its living tissue in a matter of months. The only natural predators that can handle the toxic spines are the giant triton snail and the humphead wrasser, but their numbers are often too low to stop the swarm. The aftermath of a crown-of-thorns outbreak is a ghost town of white skeletons, a graveyard created by a relentless crawling stomach that dissolves the city to feed itself. Connecting the coral reef to the land is the mangrove forest, a tangled, amphibious ecosystem that serves as the nursery for the reef's future. The roots of the red mangrove, Rhizophora mangle, arch out of the mud like the legs of 1,000 walking spiders, creating a dense, impenetrable cage in the shallow water. This root system acts as a physical filter, trapping the sediment and silt, washing off the land before it can reach the reef and smother the coral. Inside this root sanctuary, the water is tea-colored and still. Here, the juvenile fish of the reef, the baby snappers, the tiny barracuda, and the lemon sharks spend their early months hiding from the predators of the open water. The complex architecture of the roots provides infinite hiding spots. Without the mangroves to filter the water and protect the young, the reef would slowly choke on sediment and run out of fish. The mangrove forest is the kidney of the coast and the cradle of the ocean, a muddy, humid, mosquito-filled cathedral that ensures the clear blue water of the reef remains teeming with life. Adjacent to the mangroves and the reef lie the seagrass meadows, vast underwater prairies that ripple in the current like fields of green wheat. These meadows are the dining rooms for the reef's commuters. Many fish, like the grunts and snappers, sleep on the reef during the day but migrate to the seagrass beds at night to hunt for invertebrates hiding in the sediment. This daily migration moves nutrients from the grass beds back to the reef in the form of fish waste, fertilizing the corals. The seagrass itself is a flowering plant that returned to the sea millions of years ago. It has roots, stems, and flowers that bloom underwater. These plants are champion carbon sinks, trapping carbon dioxide in their root systems far more efficiently than a rainforest. The green sea turtle grazes here, cropping the grass short like a lawnmower. This grazing stimulates new growth and prevents the grass from rotting and suffocating the bottom. The seagrass meadow is the green lung of the coastal zone, a quiet, waving pasture that feeds the reef and cools the planet. The giant clam, Tridacna gigas, is a titan of the mollusk world that has evolved to become a stationary solar collector. Weighing up to 500 pounds and living for a century, this clam sits embedded in the coral rock, its massive fluted shell gaping open to the sun. The fleshy mantle of the clam is a vibrant tapestry of iridescent blues, greens, and purples. These colors are not just for show, they are created by iridophores, cells that reflect and scatter light, which act as a sunscreen to protect the clam from harmful UV radiation while directing beneficial wavelengths of light deeper into its tissue. Inside the mantle live millions of the same symbiotic algae, zooxanthellae, found in corals. The clam farms these algae, providing them with nitrogen and holding them up to the light. In return, the algae feed the clam with sugar. This allows the giant clam to grow to monstrous sizes in water with almost no food. It is a garden in a shell, a heavy, silent beast that lives on sunlight, filtering the water only for spare nutrients, anchoring the reef with its massive calcium carbonate valves. The cognitive brilliance of the cuttlefish on the reef is a display of intelligence that rivals the primates, disguised in the body of a mollusk. These cephalopods are masters of active camouflage. Their skin is a high-definition screen composed of millions of pigment sacs called chromatophores, which can be expanded or contracted by neural control to change color in milliseconds. Beneath these are iridophores for metallic reflection and leucophores for white scattering. A cuttlefish can match the texture and color of a piece of coral instantly, disappear into the sand, or flash a mesmerizing, strobing pattern of moving bands, known as the passing cloud display, to hypnotize its prey. This visual language serves for camouflage, hunting, and communication. Males will flash zebra stripes to signal dominance to rivals, while simultaneously showing a female courtship colors on the other side of their body, literally two-faced communication. They manipulate the polarization of light, a secret channel invisible to most predators, but visible to each other. The cuttlefish is a swimming computer, processing visual data and rendering it on its skin in real time, a living pixel display moving through the reef. Hiding in the crevices of the Indo-Pacific reefs is the blue-ringed octopus, a creature that packs one of the deadliest neurotoxins on Earth into a body the size of a golf ball. Normally, this tiny octopus is a drab beige, blending perfectly with the coral rubble. But when threatened, it erupts into a warning display of brilliant electric blue rings that pulse against a yellow background. This is aposematism at its finest. The blue color is structural, created by the interference of light, making it glow with an intense, unearthly neon. The octopus carries tetrodotoxin, the same poison found in pufferfish, in its salivary glands. A single bite, often painless, can paralyze the respiratory muscles of a human in minutes. The octopus uses this venom to hunt crabs, piercing their shells and injecting the toxin to liquefy the meat. It is a beautiful, lethal jewel, a tiny assassin that walks on 8 legs, advertising its power with a flashing sign of blue light that says, "Do not touch," in the universal language of the reef. The Christmas tree worm, Spirobranchus giganteus, adds a splash of festive color to the massive coral heads, looking like a pair of tiny spiral fir trees. These are not plants, but polycate worms that bore into the skeleton of the living coral. The worm builds a calcareous tube inside the coral rock for protection. The trees are actually its radioles, highly modified mouthparts that function as both gills for breathing and nets for filter feeding. They come in every color imaginable: red, blue, yellow, white, and variegated patterns. The radioles are arranged in 2 spirals that maximize the surface area for catching plankton. The worm is incredibly sensitive to light and vibration. If a shadow passes over it, or a diver gets too close, the trees vanish instantly, snapping back into the tube in a fraction of a second and sealing the opening with a trap door called an operculum. The worm spends its entire life embedded in the coral, growing with it, a permanent, colorful resident that depends on the reef's structure for its safety and the reef's currents for its food. The hunting mechanism of the moray eel reveals an anatomical surprise that seems ripped from science fiction. The pharyngeal jaw. The moray eel lives in the narrow, twisting tunnels of the reef structure. It cannot use suction feeding like other fish, because expanding its mouth would cause it to get stuck in the tight hole. Instead, it has evolved a second set of jaws, located deep in its throat. When the eel bites a prey item with its main oral jaws, the pharyngeal jaws shoot forward from the throat, grab the prey, and pull it back down the gullet. This double bite mechanism allows the eel to swallow large fish while confined in a small space. Moray eels are the apex predators of the reef's interior, hunting by scent with poor eyesight. They often team up with roving coral groupers in a cooperative hunt. The grouper chases fish into the reef, and the eel chases them out or eats them in the tunnel. It is a partnership of complementary skills, the tank and the ferret working together to ensure no fish is safe. The navigation of the sea turtle is a feat of geomagnetic endurance that connects the feeding grounds of the reef to nesting beaches thousands of miles away. A hawksbill or green sea turtle hatches on a beach, scuttles into the surf, and disappears into the open ocean for the lost years. When it matures, it returns to the exact same reef to feed, often staying in a specific home range for decades. Hawksbills are spongivores, possessing a sharp, beak-like mouth adapted to shearing through the tough, glass needle skeleton of reef sponges. By eating sponges, they free up space for corals to settle, maintaining the diversity of the reef. When it is time to lay eggs, the turtle navigates across entire ocean, basins, sensing the inclination and intensity of the Earth's magnetic field to find the specific beach where it was born. They are the ancient mariners of the reef, carrying the magnetic map of the world in their heads, linking the coral cities to the sandy shores in a cycle of life that has persisted since the time of the dinosaurs. The nudibranchs, or sea slugs, are the undisputed masters of chemical recycling and flamboyant coloration on the reef. Having lost the heavy shell of their snail ancestors, they rely on chemical defense. Many nudibranchs feed on toxic sponges, hydroids, or anemones. Instead of being harmed, they sequester the toxins, or even the stinging cells, nematocysts, of their prey. They store these stolen weapons in the serrata, the fleshy, finger-like projections on their backs. A predator that bites a nudibranch gets a mouthful of acid or a sting. To advertise this, nudibranchs display shocking colors: neon pinks, electric blues, and deep purples. This is a warning system. Some species, like the blue dragon, float on the surface eating Portuguese man-o'-wars. Others crawl on the reef eating toxic slime. They are slow, soft, and beautiful, moving with impunity because they have turned their bodies into toxic waste dumps of the reef's most dangerous chemicals. The phenomenon of coral bleaching is a distress signal visible from the air, a sign that the symbiosis at the heart of the reef is breaking down under thermal stress. When the water temperature rises just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius above the normal summer maximum for a few weeks, the relationship between the coral polyp and the zooxanthellae turns toxic. The algae, driven into overdrive by the heat and light, begin to produce reactive oxygen species, free radicals that damage the coral cells. To save itself, the coral expels the algae. It vomits out its partners. Without the golden brown algae, the coral tissue becomes transparent, revealing the stark white limestone skeleton underneath. The reef turns bone white. The coral is not dead yet. It is starving and feverish. If the water cools, it can regain its algae and recover. If the heat persists, the coral starves to death, and the white skeleton is soon covered by fuzzy turf algae, marking the death of the colony. Bleaching is the fever response of the superorganism, a desperate purge that leaves the reef vulnerable to collapse. The black band disease is a microbial plague that moves across the coral colony like a slow-burning fire. It appears as a distinct black ring that separates the living coral tissue from the dead, white skeleton. This black band is a complex consortium of photosynthetic cyanobacteria, sulfur-reducing bacteria, and other microbes moving together. The band migrates across the coral head, killing the tissue as it goes. The bacteria create an anoxic, sulfide-rich microenvironment that is lethal to the coral polyps. It consumes the organic matter of the coral, leaving behind a bare skeleton. The disease progresses faster in warmer water. It is a biological front line, a war zone on the surface of the coral, where a microscopic army advances a few millimeters a day, leaving a graveyard in its wake. This disease highlights the vulnerability of corals to infection when their immune systems are stressed by pollution or heat. The Halimeda algae is a green, calcareous seaweed that looks like chains of small, flat green coins or cactus pads. It is one of the most important, yet overlooked builders of the reef. Unlike fleshy algae that are eaten by fish, Halimeda deposits calcium carbonate in its tissues, making it crunchy and unpalatable to most herbivores. It grows rapidly, shedding its old, calcified segments as it grows. These dead segments turn white and crumble into flake-like sand grains. In some reef systems, Halimeda flakes make up the majority of the sediment. The deep deposits of Halimeda plates can form massive bioherms, mounds of algae rock, that rival the corals in size. It is a plant that acts like a rock, a quiet contributor to the geology of the tropical seabed, creating the sand that fills the lagoons and the cement that binds the reef together. The reproductive strategy of the grouper involves a midlife transformation that ensures the most experienced individuals lead the next generation. Groupers are protogynous hermaphrodites. They are born female and upon reaching a certain size and social status, transform into males. This change is triggered by the social environment. If the dominant male of a territory dies, the largest female will undergo a hormonal shift, change color, and become the male within days. During spawning aggregations, thousands of groupers gather at specific high-current points on the reef drop-off. The males patrol territories, courting females. This aggregation is a moment of extreme vulnerability to fishing, as the entire breeding population is concentrated in one spot. The grouper is a heavy, ambush predator that sucks prey into its massive mouth, but its life history is a delicate dance of gender and timing, ensuring that only the survivors get to be the fathers. The sea cucumber is the vacuum cleaner of the reef, a sausage-shaped echinoderm that performs the unglamorous but vital task of bioturbation. It crawls slowly across the sandy lagoon floor, using sticky, tentacled tube feet around its mouth to shovel sediment into its gut. It digests the bacteria, detritus, and organic matter, coating the sand grains and excretes clean, oxygenated sand. This process turns over the sediment, preventing it from becoming compacted and anoxic. A single reef system can have millions of sea cucumbers processing tons of sand every year. They are the earthworms of the ocean. By cleaning the sand, they control the nutrient levels and prevent algae blooms. Some species have a unique defense. When threatened, they can expel their sticky, toxic internal organs, Cuvierian tubules, out of their anus to entangle predators, regenerating the lost guts later. They are the silent janitors, keeping the reef floor clean, one mouthful of sand at a time. The invasion of the lionfish in the Atlantic and Caribbean is an ecological disaster driven by the perfection of the predator's design in a world that doesn't recognize it. Native to the Indo-Pacific, the lionfish has no natural predators in the Atlantic. It floats like a decorative, venomous butterfly, herding small fish with its fan-like pectoral fins before snapping them up with lightning speed. Its spines are loaded with a potent neuromuscular toxin. Reef fish in the Caribbean do not recognize the lionfish as a threat. They do not flee. The lionfish acts as a vacuum, clearing a reef of juvenile fish, cleaning stations, and grazers. A single lionfish can reduce the recruitment of native fish by 80% in just 5 weeks. It is a beautiful monster, a voracious glutton that reproduces every 4 days, spreading across the ecosystem unchecked, thriving on the naivety of its prey. The seahorse is a master of camouflage and patience, a fish that has modified its body so radically it barely resembles a vertebrate. Its head is shaped like a horse, its tail is prehensile like a monkey, and its eyes move independently like a chameleon. It has no stomach and must eat constantly, sucking up tiny crustaceans with its pipette-like snout. The seahorse is a poor swimmer, relying on a tiny dorsal fin that flutters 35 times per second. Instead of fleeing, it hides. It can change color and grow fleshy tendrils to match the texture of the seagrass or coral it grips. The male seahorse is the one who becomes pregnant. The female deposits her eggs into his brood pouch where he fertilizes them and nourishes them with a placenta-like fluid. He goes through labor, pumping hundreds of tiny, perfect replicas of himself into the water. It is a creature of reversals and stillness, anchoring itself to the world while the current rushes by. The interaction between the moon and the reef extends beyond the tides to control the biological rhythm of almost every creature. The moonlight acts as a synchronization clock. Many reef species have photoreceptors that detect the intensity of the moon. The full moon triggers the molting of crustaceans, the migration of crabs, and the spawning of corals. The gravitational pull of the moon creates the tides, which flush the lagoon, bringing in fresh oxygen and carrying away waste. The intertidal zone of the reef flat is exposed to the air during low spring tides, forcing the corals to secrete heavy mucus to prevent drying out. The rhythm of the reef is a lunar rhythm. The entire ecosystem breathes in time with the orbit of the satellite, a celestial connection that dictates when to eat, when to mate, and when to hide. The pearlfish has evolved one of the most intrusive habitation strategies in the ocean. It lives inside the anus of a sea cucumber. The pearlfish is a pound, slender, eel-like fish that locates a sea cucumber by scent. It finds the anal vent, which the cucumber uses for breathing, and waits for it to open. The fish then inserts its tail and wiggles backward into the cucumber's respiratory tree, the branching, water-filled lungs inside the body. Here, the fish is safe from predators. Some species of pearlfish are commensal, simply using the cucumber as a house. Others are parasitic, eating the gonads and internal organs of the host. The cucumber is a living hotel, providing shelter and sometimes food for a tenant it cannot evict. It is a hidden life, a fish living inside an echinoderm, existing in the dark, internal water of another animal. The sponge is the oldest multicellular animal on the reef, a living pump that has been filtering the ocean for 600 million years. Sponges come in every shape: barrels, tubes, encrusting mats, and ropes. They are cellular cities without brains, hearts, or stomachs. Their bodies are riddled with pores and channels lined with flagellated cells called choanocytes. The beating of these flagella creates a current that draws water in, filters out bacteria and viruses, and expels the clean water. A basketball-sized sponge can filter thousands of liters of water a day. They are the water purification plant of the reef. They clarify the water, allowing light to reach the corals. They also recycle dissolved organic carbon that corals release. turning it into sponge cells that are then eaten by turtles and fish. The sponge loop connects the invisible waste of the reef back to the food web, a silent, static engine of filtration that keeps the ecosystem running clear. The fierce gardening habits of the damselfish transform patches of the coral reef into carefully curated agricultural plots, a behavior that alters the very landscape of the seabed. These small, combative fish, often no larger than a human hand, select a specific area of dead coral or rock and methodically weed it. They remove the calcified algae and the indigestible species, grasping the unwanted plants in their mouths and swimming them to the boundary of their territory to spit them out. In their place, they encourage the growth of filamentous algae, a rapidly growing, easily digestible turf that serves as their primary food source. This algal lawn is a monoculture, a farm maintained by the fish's constant labor. The damselfish is a jealous farmer. It will attack anything that enters its domain, regardless of size. Divers, turtles, and even sharks are nipped by these fearless gardeners. The result of this aggression is a patchwork of territories across the reef where the biodiversity of the algae is distinctly different from the surrounding wild growth. The damselfish effectively creates a private pasture, defending its caloric investment with a ferocity that belies its size, turning the chaotic competition of the reef into a structured, agrarian society where ownership of the substrate is enforced by the bite. The nocturnal ritual of the parrotfish involves the secretion of a mucus cocoon, a biological sleeping bag that protects the fish from predators that hunt by scent. As night falls and the parrotfish settles into a crevice or under a ledge, specialized glands in its gill cavity begin to produce a clear, gelatinous slime. This mucus is exuded from the mouth and slowly envelops the entire body of the fish, forming a transparent, water-permeable bubble. The process takes about 30 minutes to complete. This cocoon serves a dual purpose. It masks the chemical signature of the parrotfish, preventing moray eels and sharks from smelling the sleeping prey, and it acts as an early warning system. If a predator brushes against the mucus, the fish wakes up instantly and bursts out of the bubble to escape. In the morning, the parrotfish breaks out of its nightly wrapper and often eats it, recycling the energy invested in its construction. This nightly weaving of a safety net is a testament to the high-risk environment of the nocturnal reef, where safety requires sealing oneself inside a bubble of one's own making. The vision of the mantis shrimp is a sensory marvel that surpasses any other optical system in the animal kingdom, allowing it to see a world of color and polarization that is invisible to humans. While our eyes have 3 types of color receptors, the mantis shrimp has 16. It can see deep into the ultraviolet and the infrared. Its eyes are mounted on mobile stalks that move independently, constantly scanning the environment. More remarkably, the mantis shrimp can detect polarized light waves vibrating in a single plane, and even circularly polarized light. This allows it to see through the transparent bodies of shrimp and fish, spotting the shimmering outline of muscle tissue or the reflection of scales that would otherwise be invisible. It uses this supervision to communicate. Many species have patches on their bodies that reflect polarized light, secret signals visible only to their own kind. The mantis shrimp looks at the reef and sees a psychedelic explosion of data, a hypersaturated, polarized map of friends, enemies, and prey that we can only imagine through the lens of advanced physics. The hunting mechanism of the cone snail is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering and chemical warfare, turning a slow-moving mollusk into a lethal harpooner. The snail hunts by scent, tracking sleeping fish or worms. When it gets within range, it extends a long, fleshy tube called a proboscis. Inside this tube is a modified radula tooth, shaped like a hollow, barbed harpoon. This harpoon is loaded with a cocktail of neurotoxins known as conotoxins. When the proboscis touches the prey, the snail fires the harpoon by a powerful muscular contraction. The tooth pierces the fish's skin, and the venom is injected instantly. The toxin acts within seconds, causing hypoglycemic shock or paralysis, stopping the fish mid-swim. The snail then reels the paralyzed fish into its distensible mouth, engulfing it whole. The venom is a complex mixture of hundreds of different peptides, each targeting a specific nerve channel, ensuring that there is no resistance. It is a silent, surgical strike, a chemical assassination performed by a creature that looks like a harmless, patterned stone. The reproductive dedication of the Banggai cardinal fish involves a strategy known as mouth brooding, where the male turns his own head into a nursery. After the female lays her eggs, the male scoops the entire clutch into his mouth. For the next 30 days, he does not eat. He cannot open his mouth to feed without risking the loss of his offspring. He holds the eggs in his buccal cavity, gently churning them to keep them aerated and clean. His jawline bulges, and his movements become slow and deliberate. He is starving himself to protect the next generation. When the eggs hatch, the tiny fry remain in his mouth for another week, venturing out only for short periods and darting back in at the first sign of danger. This paternal sacrifice ensures that the vulnerable larval stage, which usually drifts in the dangerous open ocean, is bypassed entirely. The young emerge as fully formed miniature fish, ready to hide in the spines of sea urchins, having spent their infancy safe behind the wall of their father's teeth. The orientation of the sea fan, a type of Gorgonian soft coral, is a lesson in fluid dynamics and passive feeding efficiency. Sea fans grow in flat, fan-like planes that are composed of a flexible protein skeleton called gorgonin. If you look closely at a reef, you will notice that almost all the sea fans are oriented perpendicular to the prevailing current. This is not an accident. By growing across the flow of water, the fan maximizes its surface area to catch the drifting plankton. The mesh-like structure of the fan creates a baffle that slows the water down slightly as it passes through, creating micro-turbulences that help the polyps grab food particles. The flexibility of the skeleton allows the fan to bend and sway with the surge without breaking. Unlike the rigid stone corals, they are biological sieves, static nets deployed by the reef to filter the ocean, turning the kinetic energy of the current into a delivery system for their dinner. The spotted eagle ray is a specialized durophage, an eater of hard-shelled animals that brings a heavy industrial sound to the quiet lagoon. Gliding over the sand on wings that can span 10 feet, the ray uses its duck-billed snout to sense the electromagnetic field of conch snails and clams buried in the sand. Once it locates a victim, it uses its snout to dig it out. The ray then takes the hard-shelled mollusk into its mouth, which is lined with crushing plates that look like a cobblestone street. With a series of loud, rhythmic cracks that can be heard by divers 50 feet away, the ray crushes the thick shell of the conch. It spits out the broken shards and swallows the soft meat. This feeding activity creates large pits in the sand and scatters shell fragments, modifying the seascape. The eagle ray is the rock crusher of the flats, a beautiful flying hydraulic press that accesses the most heavily armored calories on the reef. The camouflage of the frogfish is so absolute that it often becomes indistinguishable from a sponge or a piece of algae-covered rock. Its skin is covered in warts, fleshy tabs, and filaments that break up its outline. It can change color slowly to match its background, turning yellow, red, black, or mottled green. But its most remarkable feature is its modified dorsal fin spine, known as the Elysium, which acts as a fishing rod. Tipped with a fleshy lure, or esker, that mimics a worm or a shrimp, the frogfish dangles this bait in front of its mouth. It sits perfectly still, relying on its camouflage to hide its body while wiggling the lure to attract prey. When a curious fish approaches the worm, the frogfish opens its massive mouth with explosive speed, one of the fastest strikes in the animal kingdom, taking only 6 milliseconds. The expansion of the mouth creates a suction vacuum that inhales the prey before it even registers the movement. It is a living trap, a patient hunter that has turned its own body into a lie to feed itself. The erosion caused by the boring sponge of the genus Clyona is a chemical assault that slowly dissolves the limestone foundations of the reef. These sponges do not sit on top of the rock. They live inside it. They use acid-secreting cells to etch out tiny chambers within the coral skeleton, chipping away microscopic fragments of calcium carbonate. From the surface, the coral might look healthy, but inside, it is being honeycombed. The sponge extends bright yellow or red papillae out of small holes to filter feed, but the bulk of its body is hidden, eating the architecture of the city. This bioerosion weakens the coral, making it susceptible to breaking during storms. While destructive, it is also essential. The sponge recycles the calcium carbonate back into the sediment, creating the fine silt that fills the lagoon. It is the termite of the sea, a hidden recycler that turns the palaces of the coral into the dust of the sea floor. The aggressive mimicry of the blue-striped fang blenny is a nasty twist on the symbiotic trust of the reef. This small fish has evolved to look almost exactly like the Cleaner wrasse, mimicking its blue and black stripes and its distinct bobbing dance. Fish on the reef recognize the Cleaner wrasse as a helpful doctor and will pause to let it approach. The fang blenny uses this passivity to get close, but instead of cleaning parasites, it attacks. It has 2 large curved canine teeth in its lower jaw that are connected to venom glands. It bites a chunk of skin or fin from the unsuspecting client and then darts away. The venom contains opioid-like substances that numb the pain and lower the blood pressure of the victim, perhaps to disorient them and prevent pursuit. The fang blenny is a wolf in sheep's clothing, exploiting the social contract of the cleaning station to steal a meal of living flesh. The reproductive strategy of the Antheus, the small orange and pink fish that swarm in clouds above the coral heads, involves a complex social hierarchy regulated by gender swapping. Antheus are protogynous hermaphrodites. They are all born female. They live in large harems dominated by a single male, who is larger and more brilliantly colored, often with an elongated dorsal fin spine. The male suppresses the sexual development of the females through aggressive dominance displays. If the male dies or is eaten, the dominant female of the group, the largest and strongest, undergoes a rapid physiological change. Within days, her behavior becomes aggressive and male-like. Within weeks, her ovaries shrink, testes develop, and she changes color to become the new male. This ensures that the harem always has a reproductive leader without the need to find a new male from the open ocean. The social structure creates the biology, a fluid system where gender is determined by the vacancy at the top of the pecking order. The vertical migration of the chambered nautilus connects the deep reef to the shallow slopes in a daily rhythm that has persisted for hundreds of millions of years. During the day, the nautilus rests in the deep, cool waters around 1,500 feet, hiding from visual predators and avoiding the heat which can kill it. At night, it rises slowly to the shallow reef slopes around 300 feet to hunt for crabs and carrion. It navigates using a simple pinhole eye, an eye without a lens, that acts like a camera obscura, sensing light gradients. It swims backward using jet propulsion, adjusting its buoyancy by pumping gas and liquid in and out of the chambers of its shell through a tube called the siphuncle. This daily commute is a journey across pressure zones that would crush other animals. The Nautilus is a living submarine, a relic of the ancient seas that patrols the dark edges of the reef, linking the deep abyss to the coral wall. The hidden population of brittle stars within the reef structure is staggering, forming a literal carpet of arms inside the sponges and crevices. A single large sponge can host hundreds of these echinoderms. They are detritivores and scavengers, using their 5 flexible, snake-like arms to sweep the water and the substrate for organic particles. They shun the light, emerging only at night or staying entirely hidden. Their arms are lined with tube feet that pass food to the central mouth. If a predator grabs an arm, the star can detach it instantly, a process called autotomy, and scramble away to regenerate it later. They are the cleaning crew of the reef's interior, processing the waste and detritus that accumulates in the cracks, keeping the pores of the reef unclogged. Their sheer numbers mean they move a massive amount of energy through the ecosystem, unseen by the casual observer. The camouflage strategy of the decorator crab is a literal appropriation of the reef environment. These crabs have specialized Velcro-like hooked bristles on their shells, known as setae. The crab actively picks up pieces of sponge, algae, hydroids, and even stinging anemones from its surroundings. It manipulates these items with its claws, cutting them to size, and sticks them onto its back. The living organisms attach and continue to grow, turning the crab into a walking garden. This is not just visual camouflage, it is chemical and tactile camouflage. A predator touching the crab feels and smells a sponge, not a crustacean. If the crab moves to a new environment with different flora, it will molt or strip off its old disguise and redecorate to match the new background. It is a fashion-conscious survivor, wearing the living skin of the reef to disappear into the landscape. The symbiosis between the pistol shrimp and the goby is a partnership based on the exchange of labor for eyesight. The pistol shrimp is a master excavator, capable of digging extensive burrow systems in the sand, but it has very poor vision. The goby, a small fish, has excellent eyesight, but cannot dig. They move in together. The shrimp spends its day bulldozing sand, maintaining the tunnel. The goby stands guard at the entrance, watching for predators. The shrimp maintains constant contact with the goby using its long antennae, resting them on the fish's tail. If the goby sees a threat, it flicks its tail, signaling the shrimp to retreat. They both dive into the hole instantly. This partnership allows them to live in the exposed sand flats where neither could survive alone. It is a roommate agreement where one pays the rent with labor and the other pays with security. A cross-species reliance that is communicated through the touch of an antenna. The flash of the electric clam, Chitanoides ales, is one of the most mesmerizing optical illusions on the reef, often mistaken for bioluminescence. This clam lives in crevices and caves. Along the edge of its red mantle, it has a strip of highly reflective silica tissue. The clam rapidly rolls and unrolls this strip, exposing the reflective side to the ambient light. This movement is so fast, up to twice per second, that it creates the appearance of a crackling electric arc jumping across the mantle. It is actually reflecting the dim, ambient light of the surroundings. The purpose of this disco display is debated. It may deter predators by startling them, or attract plankton, which are drawn to the flickering light. It is a biological strobe light, a high-speed mechanical shutter that turns the faint blue light of the cave into a flashing neon sign. The burrowing behavior of the jawfish creates a structured, rocky home in the chaos of the rubble zone. This fish, with its massive mouth and bug eyes, builds a vertical burrow lined with stones. It is a meticulous mason. It selects rocks of specific sizes and shapes, arranging them to reinforce the walls of its tunnel so it doesn't collapse. At night, or when threatened, it retreats tail first into the hole. Sometimes it will close the entrance with a larger door stone. The jawfish is constantly renovating, spitting out sand and rearranging the rocks. It will even steal prime rocks from its neighbors, leading to comical disputes where fish spit stones at each other. The burrow is its castle, a fortified tower built downwards into the sand, maintained by a fish that treats geology like a puzzle. The shadowing behavior of the trumpetfish is a hunting tactic that uses other fish as a stalking horse. The trumpetfish is long, thin, and ungainly. To get close to prey, it will align its body perfectly with the back of a larger, non-threatening herbivore, like a parrotfish or a grouper. It swims in the larger fish's blind spot, matching its speed and turns. The prey sees only the harmless herbivore approaching and does not flee. At the last second, the trumpetfish darts out from behind its living shield and sucks in the prey with its long, tubular snout. It also uses vertical camouflage, hanging motionless head down among sea whips or gorgonians, mimicking a swaying branch until a fish swims too close. It is a master of using the crowd to hide, a stalker that blends into the traffic of the reef to get within striking distance. The chemical defense of the boxfish involves the secretion of a potent toxin called ostracytoxin from its skin when stressed. The boxfish is encased in a rigid, bony carapace that gives it a square or hexagonal shape. It cannot flex its body to swim fast. It sculls around like a hovering die. Because it is slow, it relies on poison. If a predator harasses it, the boxfish releases the toxin into the surrounding water. This slime is soapy and lethal. In a confined space like an aquarium, a stressed boxfish can kill every other fish in the tank, including itself. On the reef, this creates a zone of death around the fish. Predators learn quickly that the cute polka-dotted box is a chemical weapon. It is a swimming containment vessel, protected by a hard shell and a cloud of poison, drifting through the reef with the confidence of the untouchable. The architectural contribution of serpulid worms is often overshadowed by corals, yet they are critical binders of the reef framework. These worms secrete hard, calcareous tubes that twist and wind over the surface of dead coral and rock. They act as a biological glue. When a coral head dies or breaks, the serpulid worms colonize the rubble, binding the loose pieces together with their tubes. This stabilizes the substrate, preventing it from being washed away by waves and providing a solid foundation for new coral larvae to settle. Their feathery, spiral gills, often brightly colored in reds and blues, extend from the tubes to filter feed, but retract instantly at the sign of danger. They are the mortar of the reef, the secondary builders that stitch the broken pieces of the city back together, ensuring the structural integrity of the limestone wall against the eroding force of the sea. The ambush strategy of the bobbit worm, Unis aphroditois, is a nightmare of efficiency hidden beneath the soft sediment of the reef floor, a reminder that the danger in this ecosystem often comes from below. This polycate worm can grow to terrifying lengths of nearly 10 feet, though usually only a few inches of its head are ever visible. It buries its long, iridescent body deep in the sand and gravel, anchoring itself with stiff bristles. Only its 5 antennae protrude from the burrow, waving gently in the current, like harmless strands of algae or sensing tentacles. These antennae are exquisitely sensitive to touch and chemical shadows. When a fish swims past, grazing the antennae, the worm strikes with a speed that defies the resistance of water. It shoots its pharynx out of the burrow, revealing a set of spring-loaded scissor-like jaws called mandibles. These jaws are strong enough to slice a fish in half instantly. The worm grabs the prey and drags it down into the sediment in the blink of an eye. The disappearance is total. One moment the fish is swimming, the next it is gone, pulled into a subterranean tunnel to be consumed in the dark. The bobbit worm is a patient, iridescent killer that turns the seabed into a minefield, proving that on the reef, even the sand has teeth. The structural integrity of the reef is maintained not just by the corals, but by a pink, rock-hard organism known as crustose coralline algae. This algae looks like spilled pink paint or smooth, bubblegum-colored cement plastered over the dead coral rock. It is a plant that deposits calcium carbonate in its cell walls, making it as hard as stone. Its role is that of the reef's mortar. When corals die and their skeletons become brittle, they would eventually crumble into sand under the force of the waves, if not for this algae. The coralline algae grows over the rubble, binding the loose pieces together into a solid, cohesive pavement. It creates the algal ridge on the windward side of atolls, a hardened rampart that takes the full force of the ocean swell. Furthermore, this algae produces a specific chemical cue that smells like home to coral larvae. The tiny drifting planular larvae of corals will not settle on bare rock or sand. They wait until they taste the chemical signature of coralline algae, knowing that it provides a stable foundation for them to build their own limestone houses. It is the glue and the welcome mat of the ecosystem, a pink plant that builds the runway for the coral city. The camouflage of the reef stonefish, Sinantia verrucosa, is the ultimate expression of the sit-and-wait predator, a creature that has evolved to look less like an animal and more like a geologic accident. Its skin is warty, irregular, and often covered in a layer of real algae and hydroids that grow on it as if it were an inanimate stone. It sits motionless on the bottom, often half buried in the sand or wedged between corals. It does not chase prey. It waits for prey to swim within the strike zone of its massive, upturned mouth. The danger of the stonefish lies in its dorsal spines. Along its back are 13 stout spines, each equipped with 2 venom glands. These spines are distinct from those of the lionfish. They are pressure-sensitive hypodermic needles. The venom is not released unless pressure is applied, such as a foot stepping on it or a predator biting it. When the spine is compressed, the venom shoots up the groove and into the victim. It is a protein-based toxin that causes excruciating pain, tissue necrosis, and paralysis. The stonefish is a living landmine, a master of stillness that punishes anyone who disturbs its repose with one of the most potent defensive weapons in the ocean. The amphibious life of the banded sea crate, Laticauda colubrina, bridges the gap between the reef and the islands, moving between the two worlds with a serpentine grace. These snakes have striking black and blue bands and a paddle-like tail adapted for swimming. They hunt in the crevices of the reef, holding their breath for up to 30 minutes as they search for eels and small fish. Their venom is 10 times more lethal than that of a rattlesnake, designed to immobilize cold-blooded prey instantly so it cannot escape into a hole. However, unlike true sea snakes, which give birth to live young in the water, the sea crate is oviparous. It must return to land to lay its eggs. They slither out of the water and into the limestone caves or under the roots of beech trees to nest. They also come ashore to digest their food and to shed their skin. Seeing a ball of these snakes resting in a cave on a tropical island is a reminder of their dual citizenship. They are creatures of the coral that still require the dry earth to reproduce, binding the terrestrial and marine ecosystems in a cycle of venom and scales. The communication system of the Caribbean reef squid involves a sophisticated language of skin patterns that allows them to talk to multiple individuals simultaneously. These squid hover in the water column in organized shoals. Their skin is a canvas of chromatophores that can create dots, bands, and stripes in an instant. During courtship or competition, a male squid can split his body pattern down the middle. On the side facing a female, he displays a calm, shimmering pattern of courtship. On the side facing a rival male, he displays a fierce, zebra-striped pattern of aggression. He is literally two-faced, sending two different messages to two different audiences at the exact same time. This split-screen signaling requires a complex brain capable of processing spatial relationships and social dynamics in real time. They also use posture, the angle of their tentacles and the position of their fins, to convey mood. A shoal of reef squid is a floating conversation, a silent exchange of visual signals that coordinates their movement and their mating with a precision that human language struggles to match. The colonies of garden eels, Heteroconga hasi, create one of the most mesmerizing landscapes on the sandy slopes of the reef, looking like a field of seagrass that retracts when you approach. These slender eels live in permanent vertical burrows in the sand. They cement the walls of their burrows with mucus to prevent them from collapsing. They spend their days with the upper two-thirds of their bodies extending out of the hole, swaying rhythmically against the current to catch drifting plankton. They always face into the flow, looking like a field of question marks. They are incredibly shy. As a diver or a large fish approaches, the colony sinks into the sand in a wave, starting with the closest eels and spreading outward. They do not retreat completely unless the threat is imminent. They just lower themselves until only their eyes are visible. When the danger passes, they rise again, growing out of the sand like magical beanstalks. The colony is a collective of nervous energy, a living meadow that mows itself in the presence of a shadow. The flamingo tongue snail, Siphoma gibbosum, is a deceptive beauty that grazes on the toxic forests of the soft corals. The shell of this snail is actually a plain, glossy white or cream color. The vibrant pattern of orange spots outlined in black that divers admire is not on the shell, but on the snail's mantle, the living flesh that extends out from the opening and wraps entirely around the shell. This mantle acts as a respiratory organ and a camouflage cloak. When the snail is threatened, it retracts the mantle, revealing the stark white shell underneath. The snail feeds on sea fans and gorgonians, scraping the flesh off the skeleton with its radula. It ingests the toxins of the soft coral and becomes toxic itself, which is why it displays such bright warning colors. It is a slow-moving predator that wears its skin over its house, painting its fortress with a warning sign that can be withdrawn at the first sign of trouble. The production of sunscreen by corals is a biochemical necessity for animals that live in shallow, crystal-clear water under the relentless equatorial sun. Corals produce a class of compounds called mycosporine-like amino acids, MAAs. These chemicals act as a biological filter, absorbing the harmful ultraviolet radiation that would otherwise damage the DNA of the coral and its symbiotic algae. The corals deposit these compounds in their mucus and tissues. Interestingly, the MAAs often fluoresce, converting the absorbed UV light into harmless blue or green light, contributing to the reef's glow. This natural sunscreen is so effective that it is being studied for human use. The reef is essentially coating itself in a protective shield every day, synthesizing a chemical umbrella to survive the very solar energy that feeds it, balancing the need for light with the danger of radiation burns. The walking adaptation of the epaulet shark allows it to hunt in environments where no other shark can survive. The isolated tide pools exposed by the receding tide. This small shark has muscular pectoral and pelvic fins that function like legs. It can wriggle and walk across the exposed reef flats, moving from one pool to another in search of crabs and worms. More impressively, the epaulette shark has evolved a physiological superpower to deal with the low oxygen levels in these stagnant, sun-baked pools. It can survive for hours with almost no oxygen by selectively shutting down non-essential brain functions and lowering its metabolic rate. It essentially puts itself into a coma-like state while remaining conscious enough to hunt. This hypoxia tolerance allows it to exploit a niche that is lethal to other predators, walking across the dry reef to dine in the shallow, hot puddles left behind by the moon. The reproductive strategy of the barrel sponge involves a massive release of gametes that looks like a smokestack erupting underwater. Sponges are usually male or female. During the spawning season, the male sponges release sperm into the water column. This release appears as a thick, milky white smoke pouring out of the sponge's osculum, the large central opening. The smoke drifts down current, where it is sucked in by the female sponges through their intake pores. Fertilization occurs inside the female. The visual effect of a giant barrel sponge smoking is surreal, turning the clear water turbid with the fog of reproduction. It highlights the fact that sponges are not plants or rocks, but active animals coordinating their life cycles with the currents, filling the ocean with genetic mist to ensure the next generation of filters takes root. The dietary cruelty of the harlequin shrimp, Hymenocera picta, stands in stark contrast to its delicate orchid-like appearance. These shrimp, painted in white with large blue or pink spots, hunt starfish, including the crown of thorns. They usually work in pairs, a male and a female. When they find a starfish, they flip it over onto its back, exposing the vulnerable tube feet. They then drag the starfish, which can be 10 times their size, into a hidden lair or under a rock. They do not kill the starfish immediately. They keep it alive for days or weeks, eating the arms one by one, starting from the tip and working toward the center. They may even feed the starfish to keep it alive longer, preserving the freshness of the meat. It is a macabre form of livestock management practiced by a beautiful crustacean, a slow consumption that keeps the starfish as a living prisoner in the dark recesses of the reef. The connectivity of coral reefs relies on the larval superhighway of the ocean currents, a mechanism that links reefs separated by hundreds of miles of open water. Most reef animals, from corals to fish to lobsters, have a pelagic larval phase. They spawn, and their tiny offspring drift in the open ocean for weeks or months. This drift is not random. Larvae have sensory capabilities to detect sounds, smells, and magnetic fields, and they can swim vertically to catch currents moving in different directions. A coral larva spawned in the Philippines might settle on a reef in Indonesia. This genetic exchange prevents inbreeding and allows reefs to recover from disasters. If a reef is destroyed by a typhoon, it is recolonized by the larvae arriving from distant, healthy reefs. The ocean is a network of invisible roads carrying the seeds of recovery, binding the scattered islands into a single, global meta-population. The nesting behavior of the Titan triggerfish is a reign of terror for any diver foolish enough to enter its territory. During the nesting season, the female triggerfish digs a large, crater-like pit in the coral rubble to lay her eggs. She guards this nest with a ferocity that rivals a grizzly bear. Her territory extends upward from the nest in a cone shape. If a diver swims over the nest, they are invading her space. The triggerfish will charge, locking its massive, human-like teeth onto fins, masks, or ears. It does not let go. It bites and twists. The trigger on its dorsal fin allows it to lock itself into crevices so it cannot be pulled out. But in the open, it uses its bulk and bite to drive away threats. This aggression ensures the safety of the eggs, turning a patch of the lagoon into a no-go zone where the rules of the reef are dictated by an angry, football-sized fish with a crushing bite. The mating display of the bioluminescent ostracods, or sea fireflies, creates a starry night underwater that is completely independent of the sky. These tiny crustaceans, the size of sesame seeds, emerge from the sand about an hour after sunset. The males swim upward, releasing pulses of bioluminescent mucus. Each species has a specific code, a pattern of flashes. Some produce a vertical string of lights that looks like a glowing pearl necklace hanging in the water. Others produce rapid strobes or horizontal trails. The females wait on the bottom, watching for the specific code of their species. When they see it, they swim up to mate. This display turns the dark reef into a silent fireworks show, a galaxy of cold blue light swirling in the black water, guided by the desire of microscopic animals to find a partner in the dark. The health of the Caribbean coral reefs is intimately tied to the dust storms of the Sahara Desert, a planetary connection that spans the Atlantic Ocean. Every year, massive winds lift millions of tons of dust from the Sahara and carry it westward. This dust is rich in iron and other minerals. When it settles on the ocean, it fertilizes the water. While iron can stimulate algae growth, which competes with coral, it also feeds the nitrogen-fixing bacteria that support the reef. However, in recent decades, the dust has also carried pathogens, such as the fungus Aspergillus, which causes soft coral fan disease. The dust can also cause thermal stress by trapping heat. The reef is at the mercy of the weather patterns of a desert on the other side of the world, demonstrating that the Earth is a single, interconnected system where the sand of the dunes impacts the stone of the coral. The strike of the peacock mantis shrimp, Odontodactylus ciliaris, is a feat of physics that generates forces comparable to a .22 caliber bullet. This stomatopod possesses a pair of raptorial appendages folded under its chest like the arms of a praying mantis, but with heavy calcified clubs at the elbow. When it attacks a crab or a snail, it releases a spring-loaded mechanism that swings the club forward at speeds of 50 miles per hour. The acceleration is so rapid, over 10,000 Gs, that it causes the water in front of the club to vaporize, creating a cavitation bubble. When this bubble collapses, it generates a shockwave, a flash of light, sonoluminescence, and a temperature approaching the surface of the sun for a split second. The prey is hit twice, once by the club and once by the shockwave. This double impact shatters the hardest clamshells and crab armor instantly. It is a biological pile driver, a weapon so powerful that mantis shrimp cannot be kept in standard glass aquariums because they can break the glass. The hydrostatic skeleton of the soft corals, like the carnation, coral, dendronephthia, allows them to inflate and deflate like balloons to save energy. Unlike hard corals with their stone skeletons, soft corals are supported by water pressure and tiny, internal limestone spikes called spicules. When the current is strong and carrying food, the soft coral pumps water into its body, inflating its branches and extending its polyps to feed. It stands tall and rigid. When the current stops, the coral deflates. It expels the water and collapses into a small, rubbery lump on the reef. This prevents it from wasting energy trying to stay upright when there is no food, and protects it from predators that nibble on the polyps. The reefscape changes shape with the tide, a forest of trees that can shrink down to mushrooms and then grow back in minutes, driven by the hydraulic power of the sea. The tool-using habit of the boxer crab, Libya tessellata, is a charming example of weaponized symbiosis. This tiny crab holds a small, stinging sea anemone in each of its front claws. It does not eat them. It uses them as pom-poms of defense. When threatened by a fish, the crab waves the anemones around, presenting the stinging tentacles to the predator. The fish, knowing the sting of the anemone, backs off. The crab also uses the anemones to mop up food particles from the floor, which it then cleans off the tentacles and eats. If the crab loses an anemone, it will tear the remaining one in half. Each half regenerates into a full anemone, restoring the crab's arsenal. It is a gardener and a warrior, cultivating living weapons to compensate for its small size, carrying its own portable electric fences wherever it goes. The production of coral mucus is a massive, invisible contribution to the reef's energy cycle, often referred to as reef snot. Corals secrete a layer of mucus to protect themselves from drying out during low tide and to clear sediment from their surfaces. This mucus is rich in lipids and proteins. It constantly sloughs off into the water, carrying trapped bacteria and detritus with it. This creates marine snow, sticky clumps of organic matter that drift in the water column. This mucus is a major food source for zooplankton, bacteria, and small fish. The coral is essentially leaking nutritious slime into the water, feeding the water column above it. It is a transfer of energy from the benthic, bottom zone, to the pelagic, open water zone, a sticky bridge that fuels the food web of the lagoon. The Darwin point refers to the geographical latitude where the growth of a coral reef can no longer keep up with the subsidence of the volcanic island or the rising sea level. As a reef moves north or south away from the equator due to plate tectonics, the water becomes colder and the light weaker. The coral growth slows down. Eventually, the rate of erosion and subsidence exceeds the rate of calcification. The reef drowns. The atoll fails to stay at the surface and becomes a submerged seamount or guyot. These flat-top mountains deep underwater are the ghosts of ancient reefs, cities that lost the race against gravity and the cold. They mark the boundary of the habitable zone for the coral, the line where the energy of the sun is no longer sufficient to build the stone fast enough to stay afloat. The phenomenon of the gall crab, particularly of the family Cryptochiridae, represents a life of voluntary imprisonment within the living stone of the coral. The female crab, tiny and transparent, settles on a branching coral, such as a Pocillopora, when she is just a larva. As she grows, the coral grows around her. The crab influences the growth pattern of the coral polyps, causing them to form a cage, or a gall, a hollow chamber made of limestone that surrounds her body. She does not bore into the rock. She convinces the rock to embrace her. Eventually, she becomes too large to leave. She is sealed inside the coral head for life, safe from predators, filtering plankton through a series of tiny holes in the chamber wall. The male crab, which is much smaller and free-living, must locate these hidden chambers and crawl through the tiny apertures to mate. The female spends her entire existence as the beating heart of a stone prison, a hermit who has walled herself in with the living tissue of another animal, safe in the dark, calcified room she engineered with her presence. The solitary wanderer known as the mushroom coral, or fungia, defies the rule that corals must be attached to the bottom. Unlike the colonial corals that fuse together to form reefs, the mushroom coral is a single, massive polyp that can grow as large as a dinner plate. It starts life attached to a stalk, but as it matures, it detaches and falls to the sea floor. It is free living. If it is overturned by a wave or a feeding fish, It can right itself by inflating its tissues with water and using a hydraulic pushing motion. Even more remarkably, it can move. By inflating and deflating one side of its body, it can crawl slowly across the sand to find better light or to escape from being buried by sediment. It can even dig itself out if covered by sand, pulsing its body to push the debris aside. It is a nomadic coral, a solitary traveler that roams the lagoon floor, a disk of living stone that refuses to be rooted. The hidden universe of the cryptofauna reveals that the vast majority of the reef's biodiversity is not swimming in the water, but hiding inside the rock. If you were to crack open a dead coral head, you would find it riddled with tunnels and chambers teeming with life. Thousands of species of worms, tiny crabs, snapping shrimp, and mollusks live their entire lives inside the porous limestone framework. This internal community acts as the digestive system of the reef. They intercept the detritus and waste that drifts into the crevices, consuming it and recycling the nutrients back into the food web. The biomass of these hidden animals often exceeds the biomass of the fish swimming above. They are the invisible tenants, the dark matter of the ecosystem, living in the Swiss cheese architecture of the reef, keeping the pores of the city clean and flowing. The origin of the star sand found on the beaches of Okinawa and the Indo-Pacific is not geological, but biological, formed by the skeletons of microscopic single-celled organisms called foraminifera. These protozoans, specifically the genus Baculogipsina, build intricate, star-shaped shells made of calcium carbonate. They live on the surface of seagrass and algae, grazing on diatoms. They are so abundant that they coat the seafloor in living dust. When they die, their star-shaped skeletons wash ashore by the billions. A handful of this sand is a handful of geometric perfection, millions of tiny five-pointed stars created by single cells. These organisms are also major contributors to the global carbon cycle, locking away carbon in their tiny shells. They are the microscopic architects of the beach, creating a constellation of calcium in the sand that crunches softly under the feet of beachgoers. The longevity of the deep water black corals of the genus Leopaths redefines our understanding of age in the animal kingdom. These corals, which look like wispy black wire bushes or fans, live on the deep reef slopes well below the sunlit zone. They grow incredibly slowly, often less than a millimeter a year. Radiocarbon dating of their skeletons has revealed individual colonies that are over 4,000 years old. This means a single coral bush alive today began growing when the pyramids of Giza were being built. They have survived the rise and fall of empires, changes in sea level, and shifts in ocean temperature, sitting quietly in the dark current, filtering the water for 4 millennia. Their skeleton is made of a tough, horn-like protein and chitin, not stone, which allows them to bend in the current without breaking. They are the oldest continuously living animals on the planet, silent sentinels of the deep time that anchors the reef. The geological history of the reef includes a strange chapter in the Cretaceous period, when the reefs were not built by corals, but by giant clams known as rudists. These extinct bivalves grew in strange tubular shapes that looked like organ pipes or massive vases with a heavy lid on top. They formed dense, reef-like structures that dominated the tropical oceans for 60 million years, outcompeting the corals in the warm, salty waters of the time. They grew upward in clusters, their shells creating the framework of the ecosystem. The rudists went extinct along with the dinosaurs when the asteroid struck, wiping out the clam reefs forever and allowing the corals to reclaim their throne. The fossilized remains of these clam cities can still be found in the mountains of the Middle East and Mexico, a reminder that the rulers of the reef have changed before and could change again. The synchronized rising of the Pololo worm in the South Pacific is a reproductive event so precise, it dictates the lunar calendar of indigenous cultures. These polychaete worms live burrowed in the coral rock. Twice a year, during the last quarter of the moon in October and November, the worms undergo a transformation. The back half of their body, filled with eggs or sperm, develops eye spots and paddles. This reproductive section, called the epitogue, detaches from the head. The head stays in the rock to regenerate, while the tail swims to the surface. Millions of these wriggling green and brown tails swarm the surface of the ocean before dawn, releasing their gametes in a milky cloud. The event lasts only a few hours. For the people of Samoa and Fiji, this is a time of harvest and celebration. They gather the worms with nets, a bounty of protein delivered by the moon. It is a biological firework display, a sacrifice of the tail to ensure the survival of the species. The shedding behavior of the scorpionfish is a necessary hygiene ritual for a predator that spends its life pretending to be a rock. Because the scorpionfish sits motionless for days or weeks, waiting for prey, its skin becomes fouled with algae, hydroids, and sediment. It begins to look too much like a rock, to the point where it might be overgrown and suffocated. To clean itself, the fish secretes a layer of mucus between its old skin and its new skin. It then performs a series of violent shudders and yawns, causing the old cuticle to detach. It sheds its skin in a single, ghost-like piece, often casting it off with a sudden burst of swimming. The fish emerges bright and clean, its colors vibrant again, before settling back down to accumulate a new layer of camouflage. It is a monthly renewal, a molting of the disguise to prevent the mask from becoming a tomb. The distinct, pungent smell of the reef, often described as the smell of the ocean, is actually a chemical signal produced by the symbiotic algae that creates clouds. When the zooxanthellae in the coral and the plankton in the water are stressed by heat or light, they release a compound called dimethyl sulfoniopropioniate, DMSP. Bacteria break this down into dimethyl sulfide, DMS, a gas that smells like rotting cabbage or intense sea air. This gas rises into the atmosphere, where it acts as nuclei for the formation of clouds. These clouds then reflect sunlight, cooling the ocean below. This is part of the Gaia hypothesis. The reef is attempting to engineer its own weather, releasing a chemical cry for shade that seeds the clouds to lower the water temperature. The smell of the sea is the smell of a thermostat, being adjusted by billions of microscopic entities. The sleeping aggregations of the white-tip reef shark demonstrate a social side to these predators that contradicts the image of the solitary hunter. During the day, white-tips rest in caves and under ledges. They do not just rest alone, they stack themselves like firewood. Dozens of sharks will pile into a single cave, lying on top of each other, pectoral fins overlapping, bodies pressing together. They pump water over their gills by opening and closing their mouths, allowing them to remain stationary. This communal sleeping may serve a thermoregulatory function, or perhaps a social bonding one. They are tolerant of each other's presence in the intimacy of the cave. To look into a dark crevice and see a wall of shark eyes and piled grey bodies is to see the wolf pack at rest, a dormant pile of muscle waiting for the sun to set. The phenomenon of internal waves brings a pulse of deep, cold water to the reef that can save it from overheating. These are massive gravity waves that travel beneath the surface of the ocean, often hundreds of feet tall, triggered by the tides hitting the continental shelf. When these waves break against the reef slope, they push cold, nutrient-rich water from the deep up into the shallows. This injection of cold water can lower the temperature of the reef by several degrees in a matter of minutes, providing a refreshing bath that helps corals survive heat waves. The internal waves also bring food for the deep-water gorgonians and soft corals. It is a tidal air conditioning system, a vertical mixing that connects the refrigerator of the abyss to the sauna of the surface. The locomotion of the flamboyant cuttlefish, Metasepia pfefferi, is a rejection of the streamlined swimming typical of cephalopods in favor of a clumsy, toxic walk. This small cuttlefish has a small internal bone, cuttlebone, that limits its buoyancy. It cannot swim for long periods. Instead, it walks along the seafloor using its 2 lower arms and 2 flaps on its mantle as legs. It ambles with a rocking rhythmic gait that looks like a mechanical toy or a tiny elephant. While walking, it flashes vibrant waves of yellow, maroon, and white pigment, a warning display. Its muscle tissue contains a unique toxin, making it poisonous to eat. It is the only cuttlefish that walks, a colorful pedestrian on the reef highway that flaunts its toxicity with every step. The presence of stromatolites in places like Shark Bay, Australia, is a living window into the reef ecosystems of 3 billion years ago. These structures look like rounded, rocky mounds sitting in the shallows. They are not coral. They are layered accretionary structures formed by cyanobacteria, blue-green algae. The bacteria form sticky mats that trap sediment. Over thousands of years, the layers build up into stone pillars. Before corals evolved, stromatolites ruled the world. They were the first reef builders, and they are responsible for oxygenating the Earth's atmosphere billions of years ago. Today, they only survive in hypersaline waters where grazers cannot eat them. They are the great-grandparents of the reef, living fossils that still build stone from sunlight and slime, just as they did at the dawn of life. The chemical defense of the coral goby, Gobiodon, involves the ingestion of toxic algae to make itself unpalatable. These small, yellow or green fish live exclusively within the branches of Acropora coral. When the coral is damaged by toxic seaweed like Chlorodesmes, the goby eats the seaweed. This behavior trims the weed, protecting the coral host. But the goby also sequesters the toxins from the seaweed, making its own skin bitter and poisonous. If a predator bites the goby, it spits it out instantly. The goby also releases a chemical alarm signal if the coral is attacked, rallying other gobies to nip at the fins of the intruder. It is a toxic guardian, a small fish that eats poison to become a shield for its home. The mating ritual of the flatworms involves a bizarre contest known as penis fencing, a battle to decide who has to be the mother. Flatworms are hermaphrodites. They have both male and female reproductive organs. However, bearing eggs is energetically expensive, while fathering them is cheap. When 2 flatworms meet to mate, they rear up and extend their 2-headed dagger-like penises. They wrestle, trying to stab each other anywhere on the body to inject sperm. The loser, the one who gets stabbed, absorbs the sperm and must carry the burden of motherhood. The winner swims away. This fencing match can last for nearly an hour, a delicate, fluttering combat of translucent bodies where the prize is the freedom from parental responsibility. The flight of the Spanish dancer, Hexabranchus sanguineus, is a spectacular display of size and color by the largest nudibranch in the world. Growing up to 2 feet long, this brilliant red sea slug usually crawls on the bottom, but when threatened, it launches itself into the water column. It unfolds its wide skirt-like mantle margins and undulates its entire body in a rhythmic, wave-like motion. The red skirt swirls and ripples, looking exactly like the dress of a flamenco dancer. This swimming escape is desperate and energetically costly, but it lifts the slug away from crabs and lobsters. The bright red color is a warning of the toxins it stores from the sponges it eats. It is a giant, toxic flower taking flight, a moment of unexpected grace from a creature that is essentially a snail without a shell. The cleaning behavior of the sea snake involves a knotting technique that allows it to scrape off the barnacles and algae that grow on its skin. Sea snakes shed their skin frequently, like land snakes, to get rid of parasites. But without rocks to rub against in the open water, they use their own bodies. The snake ties itself into a loose knot and slides the knot down the length of its body, using its own coils as a friction surface to peel back the old skin. This also scrapes off the heavy barnacles that create drag. A sea snake in the process of shedding looks like a writhing ball of rope. It is a self-contained grooming mechanism, a feat of flexibility that allows the reptile to maintain its hydrodynamics in the featureless blue. The refugium hypothesis suggests that the deep, mesophotic reefs may serve as the ultimate insurance policy for the shallow corals. As the surface oceans warm and shallow reefs bleach, the corals living in the twilight zone, below 150 feet, are protected by the cooler water. These deep populations share genetic links with the shallow corals. Scientists hope that these deep reefs will act as a seed bank, sending larvae up to recolonize the shallow areas once the climate stabilizes. The twilight zone is a reservoir of hope, a dark, cool sanctuary where the genetic lineage of the reef waits out the fever of the Anthropocene. The concept of shifting baselines is a psychological phenomenon that obscures the true scale of the loss of coral reefs. Each generation of divers and fishermen accepts the state of the reef they see in their youth as normal. A grandfather remembers the reef teeming with sharks and massive groupers. His son remembers a reef with smaller fish, but still healthy coral. The grandson sees a reef with few fish and some algae and thinks it is beautiful because he has never seen the original abundance. This collective amnesia lowers the bar for what we consider a healthy ecosystem. We are forgetting what a pristine reef looks like, celebrating remnants as if they were wilderness. The true baseline is buried in the historical accounts of explorers who described turtles so numerous they blocked the passage of ships, a memory of abundance that we must fight to recover. And finally, we come to the resilience of the coral itself, a creature that has survived 5 mass extinctions over hundreds of millions of years. It has been burned, frozen, and drowned, yet it always returns to build its stone cities again. The reef is not fragile, it is tough. It is a geological force driven by a biological will. Even now, in the face of unprecedented change, supercorals are evolving in the hot lagoons of Palau and the murky waters of urban ports, adapting to the heat and the acid. They are finding a way. The reef is a patient builder, and it plays a long game. As we drift away from the vibrant chaos of the coral wall, leaving the polyps to their nightly feast under the moon, we are left with a sense of awe for this living rock that breathes, grows, and sustains the ocean. As we ascend from the warm, salty embrace of the reef, the colors fade into the deep blue of memory. The crackle of the shrimp and the crash of the waves recede. The ocean is vast, and it is dreaming. You are safe. You are drifting. Good night. If you enjoyed this immersion into the world of the coral reef, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps this little submersible of curiosity find its way to other sleepy travelers. But for now, let the current carry you. Let the water hold you. You are safe. You are drifting. Good night.